Welcome to Stable Dash per Bluechip edition, recorded at the Bluechip Conference in Vienna. I'm Chiara Munaretto, and if you're new here, this show is all about stablecoins. Today, we're exploring building the euro stablecoin rail with Luis Schaubhut, Chief of Staff at AllUnity.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for being here.
Likewise.
Well, for anyone new to AllUnity, what problems are you solving? What is euro? Who can use it? Tell me more.
Yes. So we at AllUnity, we are building, or we are now live with the euro stablecoin Euro AU, and our more or less stretch goal is in the end to make the euro globally accessible. So we more or less built long-term a global SEPA instant. What I mean by that is really to bring the euro outside of Europe so that you can really use the euro for cross-border transaction, because nowadays you have the euro within the SEPA rails. You can pay within Europe, but out of Europe it's pretty hard to pay with euro. We see it with other stablecoins like US dollar. Like with US dollar stablecoins, you can really, more or less move the funds globally. And that's what we want to achieve with AllUnity Euro as well.
And what was really the initial spark that made you start thinking, okay, we need to build this and we need to build this now?
I mean, the initial idea was that we need to be more or less stronger as European Unions to think on different ways how we can get back the European sovereignty. And one thing is also how we can bring the euro as a currency on the global market back. And this is was initial motivation to really bring Europe back on the global stage, especially in the finance space, because in the US you have also strong VC backing, you have really the power behind. And in Europe, we are still a little bit stuck in this direction. And that's what we try now to achieve, especially with our strong shareholders who are also having this dream to be the leading euro stablecoin.
And how do you see euro applied in Europe versus applied globally?
Yeah, I mean, globally, as I said, the euro stablecoin is more or less the same as a US dollar stablecoin. So you can really move the euro around the world, different use cases. I mean, crypto is one use case, but the main use cases are cross-border payments and the settlement when the whole world of assets getting tokenized. And within Europe, to be honest, yes, a euro stablecoin is not much needed because we have already working settlement networks, especially SEPA. So there, the classical use case, what everybody's thinking about, that you need a euro stablecoin within crypto, it's not that true because, you can easily on and off ramp with euro and buy Bitcoin on different exchanges. But what you don't have is a euro on the blockchain. So once we have under MiCA, all kind of assets tokenized, you also need a euro on the chain that you can settle on chain and don't have to move back into the fiat world.
So for cross-border global payments, euro is very much needed right now. And for European transactions, it will be very much needed later, as soon as the rest of the world gets tokenized.
Exactly. It's, I would say, work in progress. So we currently also as a company preparing our ecosystem around us that the euro can really move smoothly, so really from A to Z. And what is also important to mention there is that we are a neutral euro stablecoin. What I mean by that is that we really want to include everyone. So we are open, especially also stablecoin agnostic. What I mean by that is that we don't say Circle or somebody else is our competitor, but rather we say, okay, let's see how can we work together to really bring the whole financial world on chain, because this is what has to be done in Europe, in the US and Hong Kong and globally. And we can only achieve that when we work there together. And we see us there well positioned with our BaFin license in Europe, because there's more or less a strong setup to have the EMI within Germany.
And talking about BaFin's license, MiCA processes, how that has been very complex. Tell me more.
To be honest, on our side, it really worked well.
Okay.
The reason why it worked well, I mean, on the one hand, we have a really great team who did already many different other fintechs within Germany. So also, for example, Solaris Bank, which was one of the first fintechs that got a banking license, then the BSDEX, so the first really centralized exchange in Europe by Börse Stuttgart, etc. So our team really knows what to do and be really fully compliant on the MiCA side, but also on the e-money institutional regulation, and as well under DORA, which is also a huge topic within Europe. And on the other side, I also have to say that the regulator is they understand what we do.
Nice.
And that's good. So we don't have the feeling that they don't understand what we do. It's really like we work hand in hand to move more forward and bring really the digital finance in Europe forward, that we can be on the global payment world back again.
And this understanding that you're talking about, is this something that has always been there from the start, or do you see that the European Union itself has evolved with the understanding of crypto, understanding of stablecoins?
Like every regulator within a specific country had to set up a team that do really understand the technology, the regulation, etc. Also, and that's a uniqueness also about Europe, is that we're it's not a stablecoin, it's an e-money token. We have e-money since 20 years, or not 20 years, but 10 years roughly. So PayPal is also e-money. The uniqueness in Europe is that you say it's tokenized e-money. So it's more or less, there is already an existing regulation, and now you have MiCA as well. And with that, you have really an efficient setup, and more or less everybody understands how it's working, because it's more or less just on another infrastructure.
And euro for retail, euro for wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
Do you already have a strategy in place? Are you planning to behave differently?
I mean, currently we are just B2B. The reason is that we first want to grow in the institutional space, because yes, we went live this summer. So we are now roughly live for 3 months, but we now first have to really test our, I would say, systems to the limit, so that we really understand, okay, everything is working well. And then we can grow step by step. So we currently have financial institutions, etc., already onboarded that can mint in an efficient way at the Euro AU. But in the long term, yes, we are also open for retail, but they're still not sure if we do it by ourselves or if we work there together with other distribution partners. Because this is, in the long term, it's really important, because this is like how you can scale when you are accessible, I would say, for the whole world, so on the retail side and on the business side. But as a first step, business is the most important thing, because imagine, when Revolut or PayPal or so on, when they integrate stablecoins, they are already at the end user.
Revolut has just got his MiCA.
Exactly. So this is like, and that's also more also important that we as a stablecoin issuer, yes, we create the stablecoin, but in the end, the distribution is done by the fintechs who really interacting as a neobank, etc. So where people can pay the lunch, and that's hopefully at some point happen on with Euro AU.
I think this is a very interesting point, and I would like to dive a little bit deeper here, in a sense that, of course, we see a lot of players, and you play the role in between, right? So you're gonna have strong relationship with centralized exchanges. You're gonna have strong relationships with banks, fintechs, stablecoin purpose, neobanks. How are you planning to partner up with all these different players, and how can you also ensure interoperability among all the different parties, blockchains, players in general?
Yes. So for now, we currently preparing our infrastructure that we are on the first step everywhere accessible. So this is the first step. So we are now already multi-chain and developing there on different blockchains, because this is the important fact, is that different institutions and different players are on different blockchains. Yes. And as we all see currently, like every morning, there's popping up another payment blockchain. So you have to be adaptive. But I see that in the end, maybe, 3-4 payment networks will evolve, as you have today, Visa, MasterCard, etc. And we are there always in talks with our more or less end clients. So really also with corporates to understand what are their needs. And that's also the biggest blocker, I would say, for stablecoin adoption in general, is infrastructure. Because it's always like when you go out of on the street, like who has a wallet? More or less nobody. And the same as, or even, more critical is corporates. They don't have a wallet. So now we have to solve the question with our ecosystem partners together. Okay, how does a Porsche or Mercedes gets a wallet and a wallet infrastructure? And then the next thing is also there, you have to think, okay, what is with the suppliers? Because they also have to have a wallet, because it's only possible when A and B, when they both have a wallet to send really stable coins. And that's our main work currently. And there we are in talks with banks, because that would be the best solution if they would integrate wallets into their existing online banking, but also custodians, and also on the crypto side of things, because these are the early adopters. So there you can really test and understand. Yeah,
so it's really to making sure that the entire value chain is connected. Yes. So the stablecoins themselves can actually move around, and they're not just either issued or spent without having the whole ecosystem connected. And how far do you think that we are from this super interoperable connected value chain where it's very easy to spend stablecoins?
Yeah.
And then later on, I will also touch upon the saving side, which right now it's more of a critical.
I mean, next year will be really critical because, I mean, now it's already end of year. So now everybody's focusing on, yes, what do we do with a stablecoin, especially like non-crypto players. And I mean, there are different things like you need Europe, you need a CASP license. Maybe you need also a PSP license to make the payments, etc. So it's a big deal on the regulatory side of things for the financial institutions. But on the other side, the infrastructure there also has to be built because in the end, it's all about trust, as also in the old world. And this is hopefully coming next year when we work all that together and push forward. But we see also that banks and all kind of financial institutions, they really now understood, okay, we have to change something. Yeah. They're working on it, but you never can compare, for example, us as a startup with a bank because they are a big tanker, so they're moving slow because, in the end, you have to convince everybody in the bank, including compliance, and they have also other stuff on the table. So it's more or less, it takes time, but we are confident that end of next year, also Euro stablecoins will adopt because once this wallet issue is solved, then we will see like that the flows will growing in the volumes, and then you can really make cross-border payments as efficient as everybody's talking about.
And you mentioned the role of banks. Do you think right now they will have more a role of a distributor, or will they have more a role of a issuance? Because we have seen like some consortium happening, so banks are moving. But short term, let's say a year, long term, 3 years, where do you see banks moving towards?
A tough question we also ask ourselves. I mean, we are also consortium based. We have with DWS, so the asset management arm of Deutsche Bank, more or less already like a bank setup. We have then Flow Traders, who are somewhere in between as a market maker, and Galaxy Digital, who are on the crypto side. So there we always have these 3 different views how you can adopt the stablecoin. And this is working well with our partners. But what we see is like when banks want to do this, first they have to be as agile as a startup so that they can build the infrastructure. And that's where I see that banks, yes, they have to invest a lot and change a lot, that this is working. And for example, if you take this consortium of the 9 banks and Citi, I mean, it's a proof point for us because we are going more or less the same way. We are already live, so you can use us, but they first have to build everything. So with banks, it takes longer, but probably they will also issue their own stablecoins, but in the end, it's questionable if we need that many stablecoins.
I mean, in this case, they're also like creating a separate entity. So I was just talking with Banca Sella and Raiffeisen Bank yesterday about it, and in this case, they're really trying not to apply the more intense policy and hurdles that you may have within the bank, and that's why they decided to create a separate entity to actually fasten up the process. But I think it's interesting that you mentioned about banks having to build their own infrastructure. So do you think that a bank should actually build their own infrastructure or just leverage the infrastructure that already existed?
I mean, there are 2 points. One thing is they should, to issue a stablecoin, the best would be, for example, yes, if they would join us as how we also present us as a neutral stablecoin. But the most important thing is, and that's always everybody's forgetting this, is this, yes, you can set up a stablecoin and yes, you can then issue a stablecoin. But in the end, you always have to answer the question, okay, and how does the client receive the stablecoin?
And what kind of client, I guess, as well. Banks
and
have
that's
different clients.
when you, for example, have these 9 banks, they can issue a stablecoin, yes. But in the end, they also, in the same time, it's the same team because there are not many people who understand blockchain wallet and wallets things. They need to also set up the whole infrastructure they built for the stablecoin within each of the banks. So then you're again in the compliance hurdles, etc., of these banks, that they even can send their own stablecoin around. And that's tricky. Maybe or hopefully they will solve it because then we can also interact with these banks. But for me, it's more important that banks currently that they're setting up the infrastructure because in the end, especially when you now come back to the real world and not fintechs and crypto players, is that corporates, they want to stay with their house bank.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm more like bullish on here is that for stablecoins right now, we don't have an equivalent of SEPA in which how everyone should behave is properly clarified and written down. So maybe by having this consortium, they could actually create the new standard on how money moves within the stablecoin space, and that could like try to actually ease the adoption itself if we make a comparison, for example, with SEPA.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, in general, this is like just moving the whole industry forward.
Yes.
And in the end, it's like always the best will win. And there it's all about how efficient your mint and burn setup is. And the most important thing, also compliance, because this is I would say, the killer of crypto and also all kind of tokenization, etc. Because it's always about, okay, how do we do the KYC? How do we understand where this money comes from, etc. When you are like a crypto nerd or something, you say like, yeah, it's all on chain. You can more or less track the whole flow. But in the end, it's still very tricky. And especially for banks which are built on old core banking systems that are working completely different. But
you said compliance killer for crypto. What are the pros and the cons that you see with having strong compliance, like, for example, MiCA has established?
This is, I would say, we are here in Europe perfectly positioned to scale the whole world of tokenization, because we have this the regulation for the cash leg and the asset leg. And this is the most important thing, because when only one part is regulated and the other part is not regulated, it's not working. So we have now in the clarity how it should work, but still now you have to adapt the system, compliance, KYC, AML systems, that this is all working and that you have everything included. And if you have, for example, the Genius Act in the US, it's just the money lag, the cash lag. So this is a big question where I ask myself, yes, it's a nice step forward and it's also good. We see it also somewhere else in the world, but in the end, you have to have both. And that's also...
It's not as comprehensive.
Yes, and that's the uniqueness about Europe. Now everybody has to understand also the small parts, or between the lines, what it means, that you can issue, for example, stablecoin. Zooming out,
last question. I've heard very recently that the digital euro is coming, aiming at 2029, which is pretty ahead. What are your thoughts on digital euro versus stablecoins?
Yeah. I mean, the digital euro, it makes sense, for example, in the retail side of things within Europe. But this is, again, this thing, it's the digital euro from the ECB is again in Europe. So from my personal opinion, you don't change really anything, because it's like SEPA. It's just like within the countries that are part of the European Union and not outside. And stable coins, or especially e-money tokens, we more or less prefer to say it in Europe, because it's tokenized e-money. You can just send this one outside of Europe, because you are like on public blockchains, and these blockchains, you can use them globally. Within the digital euro setup, we don't even know exactly how the infrastructure will be, but it will be never like a public blockchain. It will be closed. So it will be, as now in the current world, you have then commercial bank money, you have etc. And this is then only accessible by specific...
It is not even on chain. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much all for listening. If you are curious to hear more about Stable Dash, feel free to listen to all our episodes from this conference. And well, thanks again, and you'll hear from us very soon.